Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I want to talk about an article I just read, a summary of an article in which Elon Musk is describing the way out of the U.S. debt problem is through AI and technological development that would lead to greater productivity so that the debt could be paid down in some kind of explosive growth period, where he says that is the only way out of it. I want to respond to this. I've recently myself learned what the debt is, and it is essentially the U.S. government being able to borrow against the ability to tax people, which is a unique thing because obviously most entities or people do not have that ability, and they cannot take out loans on that ability. But governments around the world that use the same system are able to do that, and they have been for quite some time. And the design is that since they are expected to be permanent and that they will continue to tax people and have revenue, income that is, that they can take out a loan against that. And this is what national debt is. And the fact that they are never expected to pay it back, which is true. They never pay the principal. They only pay interest on it, and it keeps growing and growing. Here's the problem, right? It just never gets paid off. And my understanding of Mr. Musk's solution, his proposed solution, is to just make so much money off of AI that will pay it down real quick. It sounds, maybe there's a piece that I'm not seeing. I'm not entirely sure. It makes no sense to me, because my understanding of the problem is that there is a growing and has been a growing disparity between economic classes, for lack of a better way to describe it. I don't like to break things down into classes because it's not really that simple, but consider that people have been living out of balance. Most people, you may take your home and your community for granted, the quality of life that, especially in this part of the world in Northern California, where people enjoy a great deal of prosperity in the context of, human history, really. I mean, we used to live in huts and caves long, long ago, and I'm not suggesting we go back to that. I'm suggesting that maybe we all do kind of a status check on where we're at as far as, living large, because even the least advantaged of us, except for people who are disabled or, handicapped in some way, are living pretty well. There aren't a lot of people going super hungry right now. However, in the country as a whole, there are definitely ghettos, and I have seen these places, and they're not too far from here. I happen to be in a pretty nice part of town at the moment, but just across the tracks, so to speak, in the next county over, I could tell some stories that would chill your blood. And this happens in a lot of places. It goes unnoticed because it's not media friendly to cover these things anymore. People want to hear about success stories. People want to, feel good and get their sound bites. And they don't want to hear about how terrible things have gotten in the ghettos, but they are. So, what I'm saying is that there's a growing disparity, and it's mainly, if you ask me, because the vast majority of successful people, and even the middle class, if you will, are enjoying this ridiculous prosperity that's based on debt. Our national growth, this country was based on taking things and stealing things and borrowing things so that we could build. And yes, we have obviously built things ourselves and contributed blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, but not in proportion to what we're taking from the planet and ourselves. Really, if you understand debt, it's not actually owed to any individuals. It's just taken out as collateral. Like I said, one more time, national debt is not expected to be repaid by design. And I watched a video recently that explained how it works, and the four main figures who have designed this thing over the centuries. It's a very unique type of loan that is given only to governments based on their expectation of permanency and the fact that they will presumably continue to tax people. So they never really pay it back. They just keep borrowing money and taxing people. And if you look at that by itself, the burden is on the taxpayer. The people who are working in any kind of jobs, do you feel like you're burdened? Do you feel like the cost of living is going higher and higher, and it's increasing, it's speeding up. The inflation and the cost of living rising is actually going even faster. It's because of this circular problem, and it's a very real problem. And I do not disagree with Elon Musk about the seriousness of the national debt problem. I may in fact disagree about the solution he's proposing. I don't think that overwhelming it with a shock and awe economic explosion is the answer, because that's what we've been trying to do. If you ask me, it's what we're constantly trying to do. How is that any different than what we are literally every day trying to do with our businesses and our schools? And people are just trying to run. They're working 80 hours a week. Some of these people, give me a break. They never even see their own kids. So here's your problem. Here's your problem, that we are, as a society, we're living out of balance. We are not living within our means. We have these gigantic properties, some of us, that make no sense. Okay, and it's just symbolic of the lifestyle that everybody's reaching for. And I guess if you can live that life with the immense prosperity, that the house, the property, the amassed wealth, the hordes of things and cars and stuff, where people used to live in teepees, you can just know that there's a problem. So something's going to give. Something has to give. Something is given. And there's a do you think there's a connection between our economic system and the class disparity and the other problems that we have with criminal behavior, substance abuse, domestic abuse, and pretty much it's all tied together. It is very much all tied together. And all you really need to know is that it's being fueled and funded largely in part by this ongoing, unchecked taxation and circular economic system that it has no plan to resolve itself. It's just going to get worse until it explodes. It's designed to annihilate itself. And this is what I think he's trying to say. Our tax system, our economic system, and our national debt are designed to self-destruct. And they designed it this way for short-term profit. The people who rolled this thing out, they hoodwinked the public. They pulled the wool over your eyes and robbed you. They said, "Hey, yeah, no, we'll just make this permanent. We'll make it, unending, and you're just going to work harder and harder, and your kids are going to work even harder, and their kids are going to just they won't even be able to keep up with it. But by then, I'll be, with all my toys in my grave, I guess." So it's a really sad thing. I laugh, but there's a solution. Okay, the light at the end of the tunnel, the brightness at the end of the tunnel, is that once you understand the reason that this thing got rolled out, you can control it. Once you understand the cause, you can control the effect, potentially. That's true for almost any problem. And I think that last thing I'll say about Elon Musk's article is that an economic explosion so that we can suddenly pay this debt down, even if AI and technology were the answer to that, that would not be a solution. And the fact that he's suggesting AI based on what I've seen is terrifying. I don't this stuff's no good. I don't like it. It's all it does is regurgitate hard-made human content, things that somebody actually came up with, from hard-won experience and learning, and now it's push button easy, and you can't trust anything, and everything looks like bullshit thanks to this AI. And he's saying that's the way to go. We're going to just sell so much of it that we can just pay this debt down, because we're going to react to it by making things exponentially worse is how it looks to me. That's how it looks. I'm sorry. But the actual answer is to defund certain things, restructure, change the entire economic system. People need to, first of all, be able to consent to work. That's I can't explain how important that is, where people are no longer forced into slave labor, because if you can't quit your job or you'll die, that's a form of slave labor. And how are you working at gunpoint while there's billionaires, like any of them? Explain that to me. How is anybody working at gunpoint while we still have billionaires? Why are these two things allowed to coexist on Earth? There's your problem. Okay, we need subsidies for essential businesses, and every single person should be able to count on food, clean water, shelter, and clothing at the very least. That's just a starting point. You need to be able to choose what you do for a living. That's like how you begin. and then we can talk about fixing all the other stuff, all the details. But we're not even at the starting point yet. So before we try to fix the broken system, let's, talk about how it got broken and what actually needs to happen. Like, philosophically, you start with philosophy, really. I mean, that defines your success moving forward. Anyway, I've gone on for 10 minutes. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.